Ben 10. Carnitrix without downsides. Chapter 21. Okay, Grandpa. If you say so. Zack awkwardly extended his tentacles, helping Grandpa Max to his feet while also handing him a few solid weapons for self-defense. Then, he slowly floated over to Ben's side. Ben gave him a knowing look, then raised his wrist and activated the Omnitrix. Gwen, it's hero time. Go hide with Grandpa. Ben, Zack, be careful. Gwen, usually quick with a sarcastic remark, left behind a rare moment of genuine concern before retreating into Grandpa Max's protective embrace. Ben, having just transformed into forearms, looked down awkwardly. Why is the bookworm suddenly so caring? Haha, Ben, you're the one in the wrong this time tilde. Zack grinned, his blood-red tentacles slowly unfurling like ominous banners. Let's go. Bang. Bang. The two of them stepped out of Grand Aunt's house in tandem, moving onto the lawn outside. The yard was crawling with goo-covered aliens, sludge puppies, their twisted faces full of malice, their shape-shifted limbs now transformed into grotesque biological weapons. You're not getting away. 2 fists are no match for 4 arms. Even if you're stronger than the average Earthling, you still can't beat us. Instead of running wild, just give up and die. The sludge puppies crept forward step by step, their grotesque faces twisted into cold, menacing expressions. Run. Who said anything about running? Ben stepped forward boldly, slamming all 4 of his fists together with thunderous force. Boom. A massive shockwave of kinetic energy exploded outward like a gale, sweeping across the lawn and knocking the sludge puppies off their feet. My turn. Hovering above the downed enemies, Zack's skeletal face was filled with bloodthirsty killing intent. His body radiated crimson light as he floated above the chaos. Just as the sludge puppies began scrambling to get up. Bang. 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 Zack's body suddenly flared as his blood-red tentacles snapped outward like spears from the sky, piercing through the sludge puppies and pinning them to the ground one by one. The entire scene looked like he'd just unleashed his ultimate technique. Zack, we both just unlocked new skills. Ben grinned, completely at ease. These sludge puppies were laughably weak. They had been completely overwhelmed by the 2 of them. What are you so proud of? Sneered one of the gooey aliens as it oozed like slime across the ground, then quickly reformed its original shape. We're immortal. Yeah. Try and kill us. Another sludge puppy taunted as more of them began pulling themselves back together. Even though Zack could control and shred them, he couldn't finish them off permanently. Ben was stunned. Immortal. That's basically cheating. Ben. Zack. Grandpa Max's voice suddenly rang out from behind them, sharp and clear. Their bodies are composed of a unique energy compound. You either have to deplete that energy or hit them with water, they're vulnerable to it. One of the sludge puppies twitched in alarm. This old guy knows our weakness. So what if he does? Another snapped. It's not like they have water just lying around. But despite their bravado, the gooey aliens had begun to panic, their bodies writhing and shifting in agitation. Got it. Zack's lips curled into a grin. He quickly retracted all of his tentacles, concentrating them to snatch up one of the gooey sludge puppies. He dragged the creature up onto the rooftop with ease. Go ahead. Even if you tear me apart, I'll just pull myself back together. It'll take a little time, that's all. The sludge puppy shouted arrogantly, writhing in his grip. Haha. Let's take down the Tetraman. Yeah. Kill him. The other sludge puppies scrambled to their feet and lunged at Ben, who had transformed into 4 arms. At a glance, the situation looked completely one-sided. Crack. Without hesitation, Zack tore the sludge puppy in his hands clean apart, then calmly reached for the dial on the Carnitrix watch embedded in his body. He twisted it until he stopped on a specific alien silhouette. In the next instant, a blood-red storm of light burst across the rooftop. Everyone below instinctively turned their heads, eyes widening at the ominous glow coming from above. On the rooftop, a short alien appeared. He stood barely a meter tall, slightly bloated, his body resembling a toad standing upright. In short, he looked completely unimpressive. The protagonist's transformation had 3 equally sized mouths lined up across his face. Haha. This is your trump card. The torn-apart sludge puppy let out a hoarse, mocking laugh. The other gooey aliens burst out laughing as well. Ben covered his face in embarrassment. That thing looks incredibly weak. You. Zack slowly raised his head. His face bore three wide, round mouths drooling in unison. Zhe tilde tilde you smell delicious tilde. WH what? That sludge puppy suddenly felt a bone-deep chill wash over him. It wasn't fear born of logic or reason. It was primal, instinctive, the dread a prey feels when it senses a predator. Bang! Zack lowered his head, and one of his mouths suddenly opened wide with an unnatural suction force, slurping the alien into his body like a noodle. His belly bulged outward, wobbled for a moment, and then fell completely still. Eat. He ate it. Holy crap. At that moment, all the sludge puppies froze, stunned into silence, staring at Zack with expressions of sheer terror, as if they'd just lost their parents. You guys want to try how you taste? Zack slowly turned around, his voice calm and his smile faint, but chilling. Bang! His three gaping mouths each unleashed a unique yellowish-brown energy wave, blasting through three sludge puppies on the spot and shattering their gooey bodies. The remaining sludge puppies, witnessing this horrific display, immediately turned tail and bolted. Kahi tilde tilde don't even think about running. Zack leapt down from the rooftop, landing with a heavy thud. He opened his mouth wide, inhaling with terrifying suction, pulling in the fleeing sludge puppies, absorbing their energy into himself, and then bang, bang, bang. He fired bursts of energy bullets from his mouths, one after another, blowing apart more gooey aliens in a relentless, unstoppable assault. Zack raised his foot and continued chasing after the scattered sludge puppies, blasting them apart one by one with precise energy shots. Some of the gooey aliens had run quite far, but it was pointless. Zack's honed targeting skills, apprentice plumber muscle memory, made every shot from his mouths terrifyingly accurate. No matter how far they ran, he could still hit them. And just like that, an entire street full of sludge puppies was wiped out by Zack alone in a relentless massacre. Immortal. He devoured the immortal. This level of strength, what should we even call him? Ben muttered, trembling as he watched, his voice shaky. Eating demon. Fear devourer. None of that seems to fit right. Call him the gluttony, Grandpa Max said as he slowly stepped outside, voice calm and thoughtful. In many cultures and religions, particularly Christianity, gluttony is considered one of the 7 deadly sins, representing an excessive desire for food. And since this alien looks like a demon, I'd say that name fits Zack's alien perfectly. His eyes were filled with awe as he watched Zack move with deadly efficiency. To be this familiar with the counters and traits of so many alien species. This was high-level play. Grandpa, you're really strong too. Gwen sat inside the house, quietly watching the remains of the sludge puppies that Grandpa Max had smashed to pieces. In this family, she was the only one without powers. Why was her life so unfair tilde? Don't run. Zack came to a stop as he launched his final energy blast. The 28th sludge puppy was struck from over 100 meters away, exploding into slimy chunks, then promptly devoured by Zack. Slurp tilde tilde burp tilde. Ah, that one was especially satisfying, Zack muttered contentedly as he slumped onto the ground, holding his slightly bloated belly. Ding. The host has completely defeated 28 sludge puppies using raw power, altering their original fate of being destroyed by water. Progress +2. Zack shot to his feet, instantly re-energized. Holy crap. +2 progress all at once. Ding. Template progress. 10/100ths critical node reached. Carnitrix authority unlocked. Protection overload triggered. Template progress. 11/100ths new alien unlocked. Arctiguana. Zack frowned slightly. After thinking for a moment, he said, System, open personal panel. He wasn't sure what protection overload actually meant, so he figured he might as well check his current stats. Personal panel. Name. Zack. Age. 11. Template. Carnitrix. Transformation duration. 20 minutes. Cooldown time. 10 minutes. Killer mode. Unlocked. Progress. 11/100ths. Skills. Multilingual. 5 major languages. Advanced driving, land, air, sea. Close combat techniques. Precision firearms training. Items. None. Unlocked aliens. Initial 10. Mummy. Frankenstrike. Wolf form. Gorebolt. Terror Eye. Wildvine. Ditto. Gluttony. Arctiguana. Physical status. Enhanced, adult level strength. Zack scanned the personal panel and immediately said, the transformation duration doubled. Looks like this, protection overload, upgraded my active time. 20 full minutes of transformation, more than enough to handle most enemies and situations. Zack. A familiar voice rang out. Ben ran over quickly and said, Grandpa Max thinks the aliens must have another base nearby. That's where they're keeping the missing townspeople, and the remaining sludge puppies too. The whole town's been emptied out, huh? Zack glanced around the eerily quiet area, then fell into thought. Without another word, he began twisting the Carnitrix watch dial embedded in his chest. Seeing this, Ben reflexively tried twisting the dial on his own watch, but it didn't respond. Click. With a flash of light, an orange-furred beast slowly emerged from the transformation. It was Zack's Error Beast Wildmutt form. Okay, I've selected 2 names from all the names given by you guys, 1, Houndoom and 2, Vorisummit. Comment 1 or 2. Though the transformation made him queasy, Zack forced himself to endure it. He sniffed the tattered clothing left behind by one of the sludge puppies, then immediately took off in a particular direction, nose to the ground. Grandpa Max didn't hesitate. He jumped into the rust bucket with Gwen and Ben, closely trailing Zack. After a few minutes of tracking, Zack came to a halt in a junkyard. He strode over to a rusted trash can leaning against a wall and smacked it aside with one paw. Beneath it was a hidden hatch. With a quick pull, he opened it, revealing a deep, shadowy underground passage. A hidden base. Whoosh tilde. The rust bucket came to a halt in front of the junkyard. Ben, now back in his human form, walked over with an exasperated look. You stayed transformed longer than me. Ah, this dumb watch really is broken. Grr. Zack let out a low growl and pointed to his back. Zack wants us to hold on to him. Gwen blinked in surprise, then added with a hint of wonder, weirdly enough, I understood that. Without hesitation, she walked over to Zack's side, followed by Grandpa Max and Ben. Together, they grabbed hold of Zack's thick, furry back. Sniff sniff. Zack lowered his head slightly and took a few quick sniffs in Gwen's direction. It wasn't because he suspected she had been replaced by a sludge puppy clone. It was just that the junkyard reeked, and Gwen's scent was the only pleasant thing around. Her natural fragrance helped him keep his beastly senses calm. Gwen noticed Zack's sniffing and subtle nuzzling, and her face turned a deep shade of red. Zack, I see you as a childhood friend, what the heck are you doing? Whoosh. As everyone tightened their grip around the furry, he leapt down into the bottomless passage without hesitation. Several seconds later. Thud. Zack landed heavily in a massive underground chamber, surrounded by a network of eerie, twisting tunnels. He immediately amplified his senses, scanning the area. After locking onto the right path, the transformation timer finally ran out, and he reverted to human form. I've got the route memorized. Everyone, follow me, Zack said solemnly, raising a clenched fist for emphasis. Lead the way, Zack. Once we get there, I'll handle those geeks. Ben grinned, proudly flashing his now cooled down Omnitrix. I believe in you, Ben. Zack gave him a small smile before heading forward, guiding the group through the maze of underground tunnels based solely on the memory of his senses. Along the way, they passed through winding paths teeming with rats, bats, and other underground critters. It was a tense journey, but thankfully, nothing attacked them directly. Eventually, they reached the mouth of a large tunnel and stopped in their tracks. Outside the exit lay a massive underground base, stunning in size. What shocked them most was the sight within. Rows upon rows of enormous sludge puppy egg sacs, each one pulsing faintly in the dim light. And inside every egg sac, a slumbering town elder, suspended in slime. Look over there, that's a spaceship. These geeks really came from outer space. Ben pointed in shock toward a far corner of the massive base. In that dusty corner sat a colossal alien spacecraft, partially buried under grime. It looked like it had been abandoned for quite some time. Ho-oh, did these Earth brats get in here? Were the surface patrols asleep? How could they let a bunch of kids make it down here? Damn it, kill them. At that moment, several voices rang out from deep within the base, brimming with killing intent. From beneath the egg sacs, clusters of slime began to surge and twist, slowly rising and taking shape. 10 fully formed sludge puppies emerged, their slimy bodies pulsing with menace as they marched toward the group. Zack glanced at the glowing red watch on his wrist, then turned to Ben. You're up. Got it. They're weak to water, I've got just the thing. Ben's eyes lit up with determination. He raised his wrist and slammed down on the Omnitrix. Whoosh! A brilliant flash of light followed, and a burning figure emerged from it. Even Zack and the others had to step back as the intense heat radiated outward. How did I turn into heat blast? Ben looked down at his flaming arms in disbelief, clearly panicking. Ben, I forgot to mention, don't slam the watch so hard. With the Omnitrix, brute force brings miracles, Zack said, his mouth twitching slightly as he offered a deadpan reminder. Whatever. I'm great with heat blast anyway. Ben quickly raised his hands, summoning a ball of fire that swirled into shape. He pressed his palms together, compressing the flame, and launched it with a spin, fire bomb. Ooh, a pyronite. Hee. For some reason, all the sludge puppies suddenly stopped in their tracks, emitting eerie chuckles as they willingly let the fireball hit them. Boom. The fire bomb landed right in the middle of the group, exploding in a fiery blast and filling the area with smoke and heatwaves. Did I get them? Ben asked, surprised and hopeful. Bang. The smoke quickly dispersed. One by one, the sludge puppies, each over 2 meters tall and more muscular than before, emerged from the blast unscathed. Our species has one major strength: we're not afraid of heat. The hooter it gets, the stronger we become. So we completely counter yo. They approached Ben with sinister grins, each step radiating menace. Ben's expression twisted awkwardly as he desperately unleashed bursts of flame, trying to hold them back. Meanwhile, Zack glanced down at the Carnitrix watch on his wrist, his voice low and focused. By my count, I can transform again in less than 2 minutes. I can hold out. He lifted his eyes, watching as the sludge puppies grew even stronger with each passing second, their bodies pulsing with heat-fueled energy. Wait a second. They're still growing stronger. Zack narrowed his eyes and muttered under his breath, System, if Ben keeps powering up these sludge puppies with heat, does that mean the template progress I gain from defeating them increases too? He inhaled deeply, already calculating the risk versus reward. Ding. Confirmed. The system replied. Originally, this group of sludge puppy aliens wouldn't have yielded any template progress. But now, they will. Zack's eyes lit up. Ben, you absolute legend. You're my golden ticket. Click. As soon as the Carnitrix watch's cooldown ended, Zack activated it without hesitation. It was harvest time. 10 meters away, Grandpa Max was crouched behind cover with Gwen. She glanced up at him and asked, Grandpa, I thought you knew a lot about these aliens. Max sighed. I do know about them, at least their weaknesses. But their strengths. Not so much. He gave a helpless chuckle. Back when I was a plumber, most of the geeks I encountered never lived long enough to show their full potential. A terrifying blood-red light flickered at the mouth of the tunnel. Despite the sweltering heat radiating from the passage, the temperature around the exit suddenly dropped. Gwen instinctively pulled her sleeves tighter, her breath visible in the air. Grandpa Max subtly stepped back a few paces, unsettled. A massive silver-white iguana slowly emerged from the tunnel. Its mouth was lined with sharp, jagged teeth. Spikes jutted from its back, and a row of shark-like dorsal fins ran down its spine. Though it wasn't particularly large, it radiated an aura of immense pressure. Upon closer inspection, one could even see its internal organs faintly glowing beneath its semi-transparent shell, an unnerving sight. This guy is, Ben stared at Zack in disbelief, instinctively taking a step back. The Grave Glacier. IMG. Zack grinned coldly as he walked forward to the tunnel's mouth. Then I guess it's time for the Grave Glacier, to wipe out these sludge puppies. He tilde. Ah. Please don't smile like that. Whoosh. The smoke cleared slowly. Towering, hulking sludge puppies emerged from the haze, muscles bulging and expressions twisted in fury. Another alien transformation. One of them growled. Just how many of you want to die today? Take them all out. Could he be from a distorted alien DNA from a lizard species? Each of the sludge puppy aliens stood over 3 meters tall, their hulking forms packed with muscle. They looked more like sludge-covered demons than anything else. With heavy steps, they charged directly at Zack. Ha! Foo-ah! Zack drew in a long breath. His stomach visibly expanded like a balloon filling with air, then. Foo! He exhaled violently. A blast of deep blue frost shot from his mouth in a concentrated beam, hitting the incoming group of sludge puppies dead on. They froze in place for a moment. Then, their skin rapidly turned a pale sky blue. Their limbs locked up. And finally, their whole bodies crystallized, frozen solid in the exact pose they'd charged in, now silent ice sculptures. Within seconds, 7 or 8 sludge puppies had been completely immobilized. Wah! No. It's a monster that can freeze us. Quick, Rune. Seeing their frozen comrades, the remaining sludge puppies panicked and scattered, sprinting away in fear. Run. You're not getting away. Zack narrowed his eyes and exhaled again, this time sending condensed blasts of cold air like missiles, ice bombs that chased after the fleeing aliens. His aim was precise, landing direct hits almost every time. One by one, more sludge puppies were frozen mid-escape, turned into eerily lifelike ice sculptures scattered throughout the base. Eventually, only 2 were left, staggering in terror as they bolted toward a secondary tunnel exit. Zack, slightly winded, clutched his chest. I'm out of breath, I'll deal with you two in a minute. Bang! Just then, Ben stepped forward, conjuring a fireball in his palm. Ben, they're not afraid of fire. Gwen quickly warned. Boom! Ben ignored the warning and hurled the fireball, but it didn't target the sludge puppies. Instead, it exploded at the tunnel entrance ahead of them, triggering a cave-in. The 2 sludge puppies skidded to a stop, their faces slack with horror as rubble completely blocked their escape route. Ren. Hey Tilda. Helplessly, they slapped at the sealed exit with gooey fists, utterly dumbfounded. Here I come. Fua Tilda Fu. As Zack's breathing steadied, he unleashed a long-range freezing ray once more. The icy beam blasted through the air, hitting the 2 remaining sludge puppies dead on. In an instant, they froze solid, perfect ice sculptures sealed into a magnificent glacial fortress where the tunnel collapse had been moments earlier. Phew, that's that. Zack let out a breath and smiled in satisfaction. Ding! The host has defeated a large number of perfect sludge puppy class extraterrestrials. Progress +1. Template progress. 12/100ths. Unlocked. Carnitrix feedback, Carnitrix upgrade. Zack's eyes lit up, and a surge of excitement spread across his face. He'd just gained 2 new aliens, feedback and upgrade, both capable of manipulating electric-related stuff. Feedback was one of the coolest aliens from Omniverse, and upgrade will be a huge upgrade for him, lol. Hahaha. With these added to his arsenal, he was now well on his way to unlocking all of the core transformations from the original Omnitrix. He wasn't quite at the way big level yet, but he was getting close. While Zack was still riding the high of his new upgrades. I'm not a meathead, Ben muttered from the side, lowering his arms. And for the record, Gwen, that fireball earlier wasn't meant to attack. I was just trying to block their escape path. He sounded oddly defensive. Gwen blinked, then shrugged. Sure, whatever helps you sleep at night. But Zack was amazing. Ben. Gwen glanced at Ben with a tinge of guilt. It was her turn to be at a loss for words. Ben, thanks for blocking those geeks just now. To lighten the mood, Zack offered his thanks, even though it wasn't really necessary. They got along well, and a small thing like that usually didn't warrant a thank you. But he was just trying to smooth things over. No problem. Ben shrugged casually, trying to act unfazed. Let's get Grand Aunt and the others home. Come on. Mon XTR can handle the cleanup, Zack said, breathing a sigh of relief as he reached for the Carnitrix and selected a new transformation. As the Mon XTR alien appeared, it immediately got to work transporting the remaining sludge puppy egg sacs from the base. The others joined in silently, lending a hand without needing to be asked. During the process, Grandpa Max noticed Ben still sulking and let out a thoughtful sigh. It's rare to see Ben feeling this discouraged, he murmured. But a little frustration isn't necessarily a bad thing. Ben, I hope you'll take this as motivation, and learn to use your watch better. He still had faith in him. As long as Ben was willing to put in the effort, even if he couldn't surpass Zack, at the very least, the gap between them wouldn't be so huge. About half an hour later, all the townsfolk who had been trapped were safely returned to their homes. When they eventually woke up, they miraculously had no memory of the past few days, chalked it up to old age or simple forgetfulness. Just like that, the crisis with the alien geeks quietly faded from everyone's memory. Zack and the others stayed at Grand Aunt Vera's house for another day. That evening, the two boys even used Upgrade to help repair parts of the town's water and power systems, doing plenty of good deeds before bed. The next morning, Aunt Vera crouched down and gave Ben's cheeks a thorough pinch. Ho ho ho, Ben, Zack, you two be sure to visit often, you hear? I know, Grand Aunt, Ben replied through puffed-up cheeks, his voice muffled by the pinching. Zack, on the other hand, smartly avoided the same fate by darting over to give their uncle a quick hug instead, successfully dodging Grand Aunt Vera's iron grip. Finally, under the watchful eyes of Grand Aunt and their uncle, everyone boarded the rust bucket once again. And with a rumble, their journey continued toward the next adventure. Inside the rust bucket, Zack sat gazing at the feedback and upgrade icons glowing on the error watch. A small, confident smile played on his lips. Hey, if I remember correctly, some bounty hunters are supposed to show up today. I forgot exactly who, but whoever it is, if they run into feedback, they're in for a bad time. Error feedback, I ask you, are you scared or not? Across from him, Ben sat with a serious expression, staring down at the Omnitrix strapped to his wrist. I was seriously lame yesterday, he muttered, clenching his fist slightly. I won't be that lame again. Frustration doesn't always guarantee growth, but when it came to Ben, it was practically a given, he always grew stronger from setbacks. Meanwhile, in outer space. Aboard the spaceship belonging to Mojas, in a dimly lit lounge. A golden combat robot stood silently, polishing the massive crab-like pincers attached to its arms. A huge sword rested sheathed across its metallic back, and each of its crab legs gleamed under the overhead lights. Leaning against the far wall, a bounty hunter clad in heavy full-body armor rested silently. A hovering gravity board floated beside him, humming faintly. KKK. A third figure, wearing purple samurai-style armor with a belt lined with firearms, occasionally let out a low, eerie chuckle. His laugh echoed hollowly from within his helmet, a sound that sent chills through the air. Something dangerous was coming. Whoosh! The lounge door slid open with a hiss, and a sleek, metallic robot stepped inside. Can we begin now? The golden robot asked impatiently. Our test. The newcomer replied in a cold, mechanical tone, the enemy is stronger than expected. The Lord has decided to cancel your assessment. Cancel it. The golden robot blinked. Why? Because instead of evaluating you, the robot continued, the military units originally prepared for the test will now accompany you, your objective is to eliminate the targets directly. The golden robot let out a distorted chuckle. Let us lead military robots, just to deal with two Earthlings who possess the Omnitrix. He scoffed. This mission is going to be laughably easy. Across the room, the heavily armored bounty hunter slowly raised his head. His eyes glinted beneath his helmet, though his expression remained unreadable. Those two Earthlings, he muttered, voice low and detached, they're finished. But inwardly, his thoughts were more complicated. I'll observe first. If those two kids can survive this, then maybe, just maybe, I'll consider lending them a hand. The midday sun blazed mercilessly overhead, turning the desert beside the highway into a sweltering furnace. The ground shimmered with heat, as if the whole landscape had become a giant steamer. A beat-up RV sat parked along the empty stretch of road. Oh my goodness, Grandpa, Gwen sat under the vehicle's awning, sipping an iced drink as she tried to stay cool. Aren't those two pushing themselves a little too hard? Haha, we're lucky, really, Grandpa Max replied, standing beside her with a cold towel draped around his neck as he wiped away sweat. After leaving Vera's place and heading into the uninhabited zone, we stumbled on this old abandoned training base. It's perfect for them to get some real practice in. Out in the desert, the derelict training facility stood in the distance. Though battered by years of sand and sun, much of the equipment remained surprisingly intact. Within the base, Diamondhead and Error Diamondhead were busy sparring, one transformation after another, rigorously pushing themselves through every challenge the facility offered. Both of them were going all out, tearing through obstacle courses and combat drills without holding back. Ben clutched his lower back with one hand and shielded his eyes from the harsh sun with the other. I give up. Zack, training with you is seriously exhausting. I can't beat you at anything. He couldn't match Zack's accuracy when they were target shooting at the same range. In physical drills like rope climbing or hitting sandbags, Zack's strength and stamina clearly outclassed his. But the most frustrating part was close quarters combat. Zack was so skilled that Ben couldn't even land a single hit on him. Ben, Zack said calmly, trying to reassure him, there's no end to comparing yourself to others. What really matters is comparing yourself to who you were before. Yeah, you're right. Compared to 10 minutes ago, I've already improved a lot. Ben stretched his arms, then suddenly smirked and aimed his hand toward Gwen's drink. And pranking Bookworm has definitely gotten easier too. Forget it, Ben, Zack stopped him for once, speaking with unusual seriousness. Gwen didn't even turn on the AC, she came down here just to keep us company. Huh, I didn't even notice that, Ben blinked, then gave a sheepish grin. Alright, I'll let her off this time. Seconds later, a flash of green light pulsed from the Omnitrix, and Ben returned to his human form. Let's head back. Zack smiled and gave Ben a light pat on the shoulder. Ben shuddered slightly, then immediately took off in a quick jog toward the RV. Ben, when transformed, wasn't afraid of the Carnitrix aliens anymore. But Ben, before transforming. Yeah, still very much afraid. The kind of fear that sticks with you. The kind that could give you nightmares if you stared at it for too long. A short while later, everyone returned to the rust bucket, and the old RV rumbled back onto the highway, continuing its journey. Zack sat casually on the lower bunk like a guest, resting from the intense training session. Meanwhile, back at the abandoned training ground, a massive golden robot dropped from the sky, slamming into the earth and sending a huge cloud of dust into the air. With a flick of his massive crab-like pincers, he cleared the dust around him and pulled out a tracking device. Crab, what's the rush? A hulking armored bounty hunter hovered down on a grav board, his heavy gear gleaming in the sun. He stared down at the scorch marks and shattered crystal left on the training grounds. Two shapeshifters don't just disappear without a trace. There's only one Omnitrix signal left, Crab replied coldly, his voice tinged with bloodlust. If you want to wait for the combat drones, be my guest. I'm going hunting now. The four crab-like legs beneath him spun rapidly, lifting him off the ground. With a sudden burst of speed, he shot off in the direction of the highway, the pursuit officially underway. Moments later, after a brief delay, the third bounty hunter, dressed in purple samurai armor, arrived on the scene. He descended with a swarm of small military robots buzzing behind him. 6-6, the golden robot called out. He glanced at the bounty hunter coolly. With your strength, do you really need backup? Percent. 6-6 let out a low, guttural sound that didn't translate into words, but the cautious tone in his voice was clear. The other shapeshifter's transformation lasts longer, and his control over the Omnitrix is stronger. Don't you think that warrants caution? Tetrax listened to 6-6's warning, and a faint flicker of anticipation flashed in his mechanical eyes. Without further delay, he and 6-6, along with the squadron of military drones, joined the chase. Back in the rust bucket, the old RV continued rolling down the highway. Inside, Zack lounged idly on the lower bunk, fiddling with the Carnitrix watch. Bored, he twisted the dial. This is getting dull. Let's switch to something more fun. Zack, I've got some suggestions. Ben perked up with a grin, turning to face him. But his smile froze mid-sentence. His eyes widened in panic, and he slowly raised a trembling finger. Zack, behind you. Zack's hand paused on the dial, and he turned his head. Through the slightly dusty rear window, a massive silhouette loomed into view. A terrifying crab-like robot was flying toward them, propellers whirring like a helicopter. Its claws gleamed in the sunlight, and it moved with unnerving speed. It was getting closer. And fast. It could only mean one thing. The bounty hunter had arrived. Zack's expression shifted in an instant. Wait, in the original storyline, the bounty hunters didn't show up this fast. It must be because my transformation lasted longer this time. That probably gave them enough time to lock onto my signal. He quickly glanced down at the Carnitrix watch. His transformation time was nearly up. Crap. Grandpa, hit the gas. He shouted urgently. Grandpa Max caught a glimpse of the incoming threat in the rearview mirror, Crab, fast approaching, and immediately yelled, seatbelts. Click. Both Gwen and Ben buckled up in unison. Max slammed his foot down on the accelerator. The rust bucket jolted forward, gaining speed as the desert landscape around them blurred into streaks of color. Zack, however, was still unbuckled, and the sudden acceleration sent him tumbling forward, smacking hard into the cabinet in front of the bunk. Thunk! The pattern on his chest, the Omnitrix interface, banged against the wood with an accidental precision. A flash of terrifying blood-red energy erupted inside the RV, casting eerie shadows across the interior. Krob's crimson eyes narrowed. "Don't think you can escape, you mouse," he muttered coldly, his voice full of venomous glee. And then, his speed increased even further. As the terrifying blood-red light gradually faded, a towering alien now filled the entire lower bunk, his body marked with glowing circuit-like patterns. From the body structure alone, he looked like Upgrade. But his face, an eerie single eye and a wide mouth full of gleaming, razor-sharp teeth, gave off pure villain energy. If a child were watching, they'd probably cry out, "Mom, this guy's teeth are way too white." IMG. What a terrifying form. Ben gulped and looked at Zack with a mixture of awe and unease. "You turned into that." Zack glanced down at his new form, flexed his limbs once, then looked out the rear window where Krob was drawing closer with every passing second. His eyes narrowed. Decision made. "Grandpa, I'm driving." "What?" Grandpa Max was stunned. "Zack, this really isn't the time to learn how to drive." He tilde. Bang. Zack didn't wait for approval. His body morphed like liquid metal, flowing outward and spreading over the entire rust bucket in seconds, fusing with it completely. The rust bucket glowed faintly, circuit patterns rippling across its surface. It wasn't Zack piloting the rust bucket. Zack was the rust bucket now. The interior of the rust bucket instantly darkened into a sleek, high-tech black, glowing with shifting circuit board patterns. Even the exterior underwent a radical change. Coated in an obsidian sheen with glowing circuit lines, it now looked like a futuristic battle vehicle. It turned black. "Doesn't matter what you change into, you're still dead meat," Krob snarled, accelerating as he waved his massive pincers. Whoosh! Zack, now fully merged with the rust bucket, brought the vehicle to a sudden halt. Then, he spun the whole thing around, aiming the front directly at Krob. The hood rapidly transformed into reinforced battle armor, mechanical plating shifting and locking into place. Rumble. With a deafening roar, the armored rust bucket launched forward like a missile, charging straight at the incoming Krob. "Hey! Trying to ram me? That's fine, I'll just blow the whole thing sky high." Krob didn't flinch. He braced himself, fully intending to destroy the vehicle even if it meant mutual destruction. The two closed the distance in an instant. Boom. With a thunderous impact, machine met metal. Both forces halted at the same moment. The rust bucket's front end morphed again, locking into a braced combat stance, its reinforced frame absorbing the shock. The entire vehicle had slammed to a stop, refusing to yield. Krob was forced to a stop by the impact. His massive pincers trembled slightly from the shock, but he managed to hold his ground. He sneered, staring at the armored front of the transformed rust bucket. "That's it. You thought you could knock me out with that weak charge." Click. Without warning, the armored grille extended forward, an additional segment snapping into place directly over Krob's head. "You dare humiliate me!" Krob roared in rage. But before he could react, a mouth suddenly formed on the armor piece, complete with rows of gleaming, razor-sharp fangs. Chomp! The jaws snapped shut with bone-crunching force, clamping down on Krob's head. Crack! A large chunk of Krob's metallic skull flew off, sparks and chaotic electric arcs dancing wildly across his body as he stumbled back in pain. Arg! What kind of RV has a mouth, and why does it have teeth? Krob cried out in horror as he fled in a panic. What kind of deformed RV comes equipped with fangs? Hee hee. The armored mouth curved into a smug grin, its teeth gleaming unnaturally white, like they'd just been in a toothpaste commercial. For a Carnitrix transformation, the teeth are the main attraction. Zack stood victorious, at least for now. Ding. Due to the host's extended transformation duration, Krob launched a premature assault. The host successfully repelled the attack. Template progress +1. Template progress, 13/100ths. Mental energy boost unlocked. Zack's body showed no visible changes. He furrowed his brow in confusion. System, is this something that only takes effect after I revert from transformation? Ding. This enhancement is applied to the host's main body. Got it. Zack glanced in the direction where Krob had fled. But wary of a possible ambush, he dismissed the idea of chasing after him. Instead, he turned his attention to the RV, using his transformation powers to rapidly repair the damage. Once it was fully restored, he retracted the transformation from RV and returned to the lower bunk in his error upgrade form. Man, I haven't felt this tired in a while. Zack sank down onto the bed, his face showing a rare trace of exhaustion. After all, he had trained intensively during the day, followed immediately by a full-on battle. It had drained him both physically and mentally. Ben, on the other hand, was still bouncing with energy. If that crab freak shows up again, I'll roast him into seafood skewers. Zack looked at him with tired amusement. Your energy reserves really are something else, Ben. Then his expression turned thoughtful. By the way, didn't something feel off about that crab alien? I felt it too, Gwen said, her face showing a flicker of concern, though her voice remained calm. It's just like the mechanoids we ran into earlier, they know exactly where we are. That crab alien didn't show up by coincidence, it was tracking us. We need to stay alert from now on, she added. There may be more of them hunting us. Grandpa Max took the opportunity to share his own assessment. Knowing Vilgax, he'd never send just one operative. Max thought. Bang. With a sharp sound effect, a flash of blood-red light filled the room as Zack reappeared on the lower bunk. In that instant, the weariness on his face vanished. His mind felt razor-sharp, his senses heightened, it was as if his brain had been upgraded to a whole new level. He sat up, fully alert and focused. System, Zack said immediately, open my personal panel. Personal panel. Host. Zack. Age. 11. Template. Carnitrix. Transformation duration. 20 minutes. Cooldown duration. 10 minutes. Killer mode. Unlocked. Progress. 13/100. Skills. Multilingualism. Proficiency in 5 major languages. Advanced driving. Expertise in operating vehicles across land, air, and sea. Close combat techniques. Training in hand-to-hand or close-quarters fighting. Precision firearms training. Instruction in the accurate and precise use of firearms. Inventory. None. Unlocked aliens. The original 10. Snare O, Mummy. Feedback. Frankenstrike. Blitzwolfer. Gorebolt. Terror Eye. Wildvine. Ditto. Gluttony. Grave Glacier. Upgrade. Physical condition. Adult level physical strength. Mental energy. Significantly above average for a human. So my mental energy is stronger than a normal person's, huh? Zack raised an eyebrow, pleasantly surprised as he read over the physical condition section. System, he asked, aside from keeping me alert and giving me faster reaction speed, does this actually do anything else? The system responded promptly, affirmative. The superpowers and energy output of certain aliens are directly affected by the strength of your mental energy. The strength of mental energy actually had that much influence. Bounty hunters, I'll be waiting for each of you to come knocking at my door. Zack muttered, clenched his fists, brimming with energy and excitement, matching Ben's enthusiasm. In a long abandoned, dust-covered town, an old RV pulled in and came to a stop in a secluded corner. This place looks completely deserted, Zack said as he stepped out of the rust bucket, scanning the surroundings. Ben, let's set up an ambush nearby. We'll be ready for whoever's chasing us. Zack. Ben leaned out of the RV window, his expression unusually serious. Let's split up for the ambush. You can't transform yet, but I can. If something goes wrong, I'll jump out first. That way we won't risk exposing you too soon. You, alright. Zack hesitated for a moment, but then nodded. He didn't believe in any kind of protagonist halo, but he did believe in Ben's strength. Grandpa, I need to borrow something real quick. Ben ducked back inside the RV, rummaged around with Grandpa Max's help, then came back out with what he needed, ready to move. Ben flashed a confident grin at Zack, hands casually tucked in his pockets. Zack, you're technically more skilled. You use the watch better than I do. But I can come up with tactics you'd never think of. With that declaration, he confidently entered one house after another, eventually settling into a warehouse to hide. I hope so. Zack murmured. He then turned to Grandpa Max. Grandpa, I'm counting on you to keep an eye on Gwen. After watching Ben disappear into the distance, Zack gave a quiet warning, then resolutely moved toward a nearby house. He pushed open a window and slipped inside. The interior was dim and filled with a musty stench. Cobwebs stretched from corner to corner, and dust coated every surface. But Zack didn't mind. He simply found a good hiding spot and settled in to wait patiently. Meanwhile, Grandpa Max and Gwen, who weren't going to participate in the ambush, moved farther away to find a safer place to hide. Time passed slowly. The road remained silent and empty. Bang! Bang! Suddenly, the ground began to tremble, mounds of dirt rising and falling in sequence. It looked as if something massive was tunneling underground, heading straight for them. Rumble. With a thunderous crash and a cloud of dust rising into the air, a massive figure burst out from beneath the ground. Rats. Krob, his head now repaired, shook the dust from his body and growled menacingly. So this is where you've been hiding. Wasting no time, he scanned the area and instantly locked onto the rust bucket's location. With heavy, deliberate steps, Krob began marching straight toward it. Inside a nearby house, Zack crouched low, barely daring to breathe. His heart pounded in his chest. He glanced down at the Carnitrix watch on his wrist, quickly tapping the screen, but it remained unresponsive. The cooldown isn't over yet. And with his enhanced mental energy, Zack could feel it more clearly than ever. Krob's murderous intent was suffocating. Outside, Krob raised one of his massive pincers high above his head, aiming it directly at the rust bucket. Then let's start by smashing this fooled old RV. Clearly, he held a deep grudge against the vehicle that had embarrassed him before. Bang! A muffled but distinct thud echoed from the warehouse where Ben was hiding. Krob's eyes narrowed, instantly locking onto the source of the sound. He charged forward. Thermal scanner activated. Such a large heat signature. Did he transform into a pyronite? Zack, still hidden nearby, clenched his fists nervously. Can Heat Blast really take him on? Wouldn't Upgrade be a better choice in this situation? Crunch. Krob extended one of his pincers and effortlessly tore the warehouse door off its hinges like it was made of paper, but the moment he looked inside, his expression froze. The entire interior was engulfed in flames. Dozens of wooden crates were stacked high, all burning furiously, filling the warehouse with blazing heat and thick smoke. Boom. From within the inferno, a massive flaming fist, several meters long, suddenly burst forth. Wham! It slammed into Krob's chest and sent him flying through the air. Bang! He crashed to the ground hard, sprawling across the dirt. Smoke curled off his scorched armor, and burn marks covered his body. A pyronite actually managed to send me flying. He snarled, stunned and furious. The lighter I borrowed from Grandpa really came in handy. Ben strode out of the burning warehouse, his pyronite form radiating intense heat and confidence. He flashed a cocky grin. Since no one lives here, I figured, why not burn the place down a little? Zack, still hidden nearby, quickly pieced it together. So that's why Ben asked Grandpa for a lighter earlier. He set the crates on fire beforehand, then transformed into Heat Blast and used the flames to his advantage. It was a clever plan, a very cunning combat strategy. Using the Inferno to boost his own power, Ben had significantly increased his combat effectiveness and managed to hold his own in a heated back-and-forth battle with Krob. But just then, swash. High above, a shadowy figure appeared in the sky, leading a swarm of flying machines. It was 66. Hovering ominously overhead, he brought with him over a dozen robotic drones. The fleet buzzed in formation above Ben's head. 66 aimed his laser rifle down with precise intent, targeting Ben directly. The drones followed suit, charging their weapons in unison. Click. Just as 66 coldly pulled the trigger. Bang! 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 Chaos erupted. The robotic drones, as if jolted by some unseen force, suddenly swerved and veered off course, colliding mid-air with one another in a tangled mess of metal and sparks. The entire squadron slammed into an unprepared 66, sending him spinning through the air, completely thrown off balance. The robotic drones swiveled mid-air, their turrets now aimed squarely at the house where Zack was hiding. From within, a flicker of blood-red light began to pulse ominously. Detecting extremely volatile energy readings. The robotic units relayed the data in real time, their tones urgent and mechanical. What? 66, still recovering from the earlier collision, froze. His mouth twitched uncontrollably beneath his helmet. A bunch of combat drones, overreacting in sheer panic, all because of a second Omnitrix transformation. Seriously. They got spooked by that. His bewilderment was unmistakable. The readings made no sense, but the fear from his machines was real. Boom. 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 The small robots unleashed a barrage of laser blasts, scorching the air as they rained down destruction. One after another, laser beams tore through the buildings. Seeing this, 66 no longer bothered cursing and joined in, firing relentlessly. Their overwhelming firepower reduced the house where Zack had been hiding to rubble, blasting it into a cloud of dust and debris. Moments later, thick smoke billowed over the ruined area. 66 glanced down at the detector in his hand. The signal from the Carnitrix had vanished. The small robots halted their assault. Their scanners showed no remaining energy signature. Target eliminated. Whoosh. Suddenly, space twisted violently, and from the smoke emerged a terrifying, ghostly silhouette, materializing right in the middle of the robotic formation. Extremely volatile energy detected. Extremely volatile energy detected. The alerts blared in unison as the drones scrambled in panic, scattering in all directions like startled birds. Every turret snapped into position, aiming directly at the phantom-like figure that had just appeared. Kahahe, you wanted to kill me. Zack unleashed his monstrous transformation, his body grotesque and terrifying. Blood-red tentacles erupted from his form, swinging out like massive axes. But I'm already a ghost tilde, you better die for your misjudgment tilde. Crack. Crack. In the blink of an eye, 3 or 4 small robots were cleaved clean in half. The remaining drones scattered in disarray, their flight paths disrupted as they frantically tried to evade. None of their laser shots landed anywhere near Zack. Ectonorite species. With damaged DNA. What's with this energy rating? 66 screamed in panic, frantically raising his laser pistol and aiming at Zack's advancing figure. You're next. Zack turned his head, his skull-like face locking eyes with 66, glowing with an eerie intensity. 66's hand shook violently, and he pulled the trigger, but his shots went wild, completely missing the mark. Fear had overtaken him. His aim was useless under the pressure of sheer terror. Oh tilde. Missing your mark, huh tilde. Let me show you how it's done. Zack's eyes gleamed with a wicked glint as deep purple waves of mental energy pulsed outward, condensing around him like a storm. As Zack's brain surged with power, waves of concentrated energy erupted outward. Boom. They struck 66 dead on, sending him flying and crashing into a nearby building. The structure shattered under the impact, reduced to rubble. That felt good. Zack let out a low, triumphant growl, ready to press the advantage, but just then, a searing wave of heat rolled over him. The sunlight overhead had grown harsh, burning against his alien form. Whoosh. Without hesitation, Zack shifted into an incorporeal state, phasing through the sunlight and avoiding the follow-up laser blasts from the remaining drones. Wow. It looks like. He clenched his fist, excitement flashing in his eyes. The mental energy boost really powered up Ghost Freak's abilities. Now, activating intangibility barely drained his stamina. His energy blasts had become far more devastating. Even his biggest weakness, sunlight, wasn't as deadly anymore. Error Ghost Freak, number 1. Zack grinned wickedly, his eyes glowing with menace as he slowly turned toward the remaining small robots. Now, the hunt begins. Still in his incorporeal state, Zack's eyes began to glow, then flash with focused beams of energy. Boom. Boom. Twin laser blasts erupted from thin air, slicing through the sky and striking the remaining small robots. One after another, they exploded into scrap metal, unable to locate the source of the attack before being completely destroyed. They never even saw it coming. So satisfying. Zack grinned as he continued the assault, weaving between targets, phasing in and out, and launching blast after devastating blast. After a brief pause to recover his aim, he locked onto another drone, just as a high-pitched, eerie shriek echoed from below. Ah! It was 66. Zack glanced down, eyebrows twitching. Oh right, almost forgot about you. Below him stood 66, body scorched and damaged, armor cracked and sparking. His mask had been half blasted off, exposing jagged fangs twisted in rage. He let out another unearthly howl and charged upward toward Zack with deadly intent. The rocket pack on 6-6's back roared to life, spewing fire as he launched himself into the air. You're asking for it. Zack snarled. His body instantly became tangible again, and with a sharp command of his abilities, countless blood-red tentacles coiled together, forming a massive, pulsing hammer. Whoosh! 6-6's expression twisted in terror. His body visibly shuddered, and his aggressive aura completely collapsed. Without a second thought, he twisted in midair, narrowly dodging Zack's hammer by a hair's breadth. Zack's attack missed, and he quickly looked up, only to see 6-6 speeding away, putting distance between them fast. Yes, he was fleeing. Whoosh! 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 The remaining 7 or 8 small robots scattered as well, frantically entering escape mode and blasting off in the opposite direction. Zack stood there, momentarily stunned. Did I just scare off 6-6? His lips twitched in disbelief as he stared at the empty sky. All his enemies had fled. Ding! Host has driven away 6-6 and destroyed 8 small robots. Progress +1. Template progress. 14/100ths new alien unlocked. Zack frowned slightly. I don't remember this alien too well. I'll test him out when I get the chance. Just then, a noise came from the ground. Krob, his armor scorched and glowing red, lay weakly on the cracked earth. He looked up at the sky, eyes burning with fury as he gritted his teeth. Cowards, all of them ran off. Hey! Ben stepped forward and planted his foot squarely on one of Krob's giant claws, grinning. You couldn't even protect yourself, and you're still trash-talking your teammates. Give it a rest, Ben 1, Villains 0. He looked up at Zack with a proud smirk. Yeah. Zack nodded, slowly descending through the air toward him. Ben, leave this one to me. I might get a bonus reward for taking him out. Ben shrugged and stepped aside without hesitation. Go for it. He's all yours. Before Zack could even fly over, a sharp whoosh sliced through the air. One crystal spike after another shot toward both Zack and Ben. Zack immediately phased into his incorporeal form to evade, while Ben ignited into flames and shattered the incoming crystal with a fiery burst. The two of them looked toward the source in unison, their expressions growing serious. Stepping off a hoverboard, Tetrax landed at the edge of the abandoned town. Trailing behind him were the 7 small robots that had escaped earlier. This one's mine. Without hesitation, Ben burst into flames and shot toward Tetrax like a fireball. Brat. Tetrax's tone was cold and firm as he eyed Ben's approach. You're getting cocky just because you had a lucky break. That won't fly with me. Without even looking, he raised his arm and swung his elbow outward with brutal force. Boom. Ben was smashed directly into the ground, the impact cracking the earth. Before he could react, a massive diamond cage materialized above him and slammed down, pinning him inside with unyielding strength. You're next. Tetrax glanced around the desolate surroundings with cool confidence. Whoosh. Is that so? A low, eerie sound echoed, and in the next instant, countless blood-red tentacles erupted from the shadows, lashing straight toward Tetrax. Bang! With a swift motion, Tetrax opened his palm, summoning a flurry of crystals that instantly condensed into a massive diamond hand. The crystalline construct slammed into the tentacles, grabbing hold of them midair, and with a powerful twist, hurled the unsuspecting Zack straight to the ground. Too weak, Tetrax said coldly. How can this possibly? Swoosh. Before he could finish, the same blood-red tentacles coiled tightly around his arms and legs. Using the momentum of his fall, Zack yanked Tetrax down with him. Boom. Tetrax crashed heavily into the ground beside him, his eyes narrowing in surprise. He can fight up close too. This shapeshifter was unexpectedly powerful. The two clashed, grappling fiercely on the ground. While Tetrax held the upper hand in brute strength, Zack relied on his abilities and technique to hold his own. Blow after blow, they fought to a stalemate. After several exchanges, Zack's tentacles suddenly phased out of existence, and he vanished once more. Tetrax stood up, his expression serious as he slipped into a combat stance. Interesting. But just then, a flash of blood-red light exploded in front of him. The ghostly silhouette of the Mon XTR appeared directly before Tetrax. Caught off guard, Tetrax instinctively swung his fist toward the incoming figure, only to miss. Zack's mask dropped back into place as he twisted to evade the punch. Without slowing down, he darted toward Ben. At that moment, Ben had already reverted back from his transformation, breathing heavily and vulnerable. Several of the small robots were closing in on him fast. Bang! Zack's tail shot out like a whip, scooping Ben off the ground. With his friend secured, he bolted away from the battlefield. Retreating was the best option, for now. Tetrax lowered his fists, a hint of surprise flickering across his face. This shapeshifter, his control over the Omnitrix, and even his own combat ability, is impressive. With 6-6 having fled and Krob already beaten, this was the perfect opportunity for him to test Zack's strength firsthand. A good challenge. Cough, cough. Crackling with electricity and nearly charred, Krob shakily pushed himself upright. Still alive. Tetrax raised an eyebrow. 6-6 ran away. Aren't you going to retreat too? Krob slowly raised his massive claw and growled, no. We'll take them both down, together. Tetrax stared at him for a long moment, eyes narrowing. Fine, he finally said. He'd seen stubborn people before. But never anyone this suicidally stubborn. 100 meters away, in a small house. A figure flipped over the house, landed in front of Grandpa Max and Gwen, and placed Ben on the ground. What's going on, Zack? Grandpa Max looked at Zack's face and asked. A very strong alien has arrived, Zack explained seriously. My transformation time is almost up, so we can only retreat for now. Although he vaguely remembered that Tetrax meant them no harm. When you're out in the world, how can you leave your fate in someone else's hands? Yeah, he's really strong. Ben rubbed his ribs, wincing in pain. Grandpa Max took a deep breath, his gaze shifting from Zack's face to the ground beside them. I just surveyed the surrounding area, there's a mine a kilometer away. We'll hide there. All right. Zack nodded firmly, then reached out and hoisted the furthest hiding Gwen onto his back. Gwen, I'll take you over first. He tilde. Ah. Zack, stop with that horrifying smile. A kilometer away, at the entrance of a massive mine. As Zack delivered Grandpa Max to the entrance, he ended his transformation, his expression relaxed. This way, they won't be able to catch us. Zack, when you can transform again, we'll double team that alien. Ben shook his slightly damaged watch, which had just finished cooling down, and spoke seriously. Then, the four of them decisively stepped forward, crossed the entrance, and entered the mine tunnel. In the pitch-black tunnel, rustling sounds echoed all around, as if rats or similar creatures were scurrying about. This place is so dark. Gwen subconsciously hugged Zack's arm, her face filled with fear. It's okay, Gwen. Compared to me, rats are nothing to be afraid of, Zack said with a grin, comforting her in his own way. Gwen suddenly remembered Herr Gehoftfrake's face subconsciously in this dark place and shuddered. Grandpa Max, walking at the very front, sighed. If only I'd brought an extra lighter, it wouldn't be this troublesome. All right, I'll keep an eye on the rear. Ben took up the back position, keeping a close watch on the tunnel entrance behind them. At the entrance, it was still calm and peaceful. The four of them quickened their pace, moving deeper into the tunnel. Before long, a discarded mine cart appeared in front of them. Grandpa Max found some tools nearby, and using the faint glow from Ben's watch, he managed to repair the mine cart. The four of them climbed into the cart and let it carry them forward. As the mine cart bumped along the track, Zack stared at Grandpa Max and said admiringly, Grandpa, you really can fix anything. Do plumbers really need to know all this? Hey tilde, if he unlocked more advanced plumber skills, would he become as versatile as his grandpa? Grandpa Max turned his head away, somewhat guiltily changing the subject. Zack, Grandpa will teach you all this later. For now, I need to watch the road. The journey continued in silence. After a while, the mine cart exited the tunnel and arrived at an open pit mine surrounded by rock walls. Zack slowly stood up in the cart, squinting as everything around him appeared blurry. His eyes gradually adjusted to the outdoor light. Once his vision cleared, Zack quickly located the mine entrance. His expression turned grim. This is bad. The mine's only entrance gate was sealed off by terrifying crystals. Wait, this crystal, the one chasing us, is similar to Diamond Head. Ben exclaimed as he looked at the crystal. It seems we've walked right into a trap, Grandpa Max said, looking a bit embarrassed. Whoosh. With a sudden sound, Tetrax, riding a hoverboard, flew to the top of the entrance. His tone was arrogant, arms spread wide. Is hiding all you know how to do? No matter where you run, you can't escape from me. Bang, bang, bang. Small robots suddenly flew out from the surrounding rock walls, aiming at Zack and the others. Boom. With an explosion, Krob burst up from underground, flipping the mine cart over. Rats, you've got nowhere left to run. Krob growled, waving his massive pincers as he spoke indistinctly. The entire mine had been completely surrounded by bounty hunters and small robots. Zack, do you have any good ideas? Ben slowly retreated to Zack's side and asked. Zack looked around, continuously rotating the error screen. Give me a few seconds, I need to think. Whoosh. Along with the small robots, Krob also advanced. They approached the group step by step, deploying their laser turrets and aiming directly at Zack and Ben. Tetrax observed everything, slowly flying over as well. Only by pushing you to the brink can I witness your true combat power. Wait. Zack looked around, eyes firm. I have a way to take them down, but it's very risky. You need to get away. Zack, what do you need me to do? Ben clenched his fists and asked. I need you to trust me. Without hesitation, Zack turned toward a specific alien on the dial and slapped it. In an instant, Ben, Grandpa Max, and the others all ran into the distance, choosing to trust Zack. Krob opened his pincers, unleashing a terrifying laser wave that blasted straight toward Zack. The small robots also prioritized firing laser beams at him. Even Tetrax extended his hand, launching crystal after crystal at Zack. All the enemies on the field, whether driven by hatred, mission objectives, or other motives, chose to focus their firepower on Zack alone. I chose you. Zack's heart pounded. After selecting that familiar alien, he slammed his hand down on the error screen. A terrifying blood-red light erupted on the spot. A figure slowly emerged from within the red glow. It was a tall alien, entirely black. Sharp antennae jutted from its head, its fingers were shaped like plugs, and even the tip of its tail ended in a plug. Its face was blood red, as if stained with blood, and its sharp fangs gave it an even more fearsome appearance. Image. What is that thing? Tetrax's heart skipped a beat at the sight of the terrifying creature. Then, Zack bared his fangs, grinning ferociously. He raised his arms, aiming his palms at the incoming lasers from all directions. Let your energy become my nourishment. Bang! As waves of energy struck his arms, countless terrifying streams of power obediently swirled around him. What's going on? Increase output. Increase output. Krob's jaw nearly dropped, his massive pincers slamming hard against the ground. The small robots kept increasing their output, but it was useless. Absorb. With a low roar, Zack drew in the surrounding energy, countless streams of power scattering before being sucked into his body through his fingers. Bang! His chest expanded in an instant, and terrifying currents burst out from him, burning like raging flames, wrapping around his form. At that moment, Zack looked like the god of thunder and lightning. This. Krob weakly lowered his pincers and frantically shouted, what is that thing? How did it drain all my energy? Insufficient energy, insufficient energy. The small robots flickered with red lights, swaying like they were drunk. You seem to need a lot of energy. Well, don't cry about it. Zack slightly raised his hand, and terrifying currents instantly deflected the incoming crystals. I'll just return all that energy to you. As soon as he finished speaking, he extended both palms, bringing them together as the current gathered between them. Boom! A deep golden electric blast surged out, instantly piercing through Krob's body. How is that possible? He actually took me down, me, Krob, with a single shot. Krob's face twisted in pain as his body quickly shattered, collapsing into a pile of scrap metal. Ah, don't think I forgot about you lil ones. Tilda. Boom. Zack flicked his palms, and another electric blast followed, cutting through the small robots like a massive sword, causing them to explode one after another. A total of 7 small robots were sliced in half at the same time by a single strike. Smoke filled the air from the explosions. Such terrifying firepower. Tetrax's expression shifted slightly as he stared at the scene in astonishment. This alien is so cool. Ben said excitedly. Let's call him Feedback. Think of something else. Keep the name feedback for yourself. Then let's call it Backlash. Backlash by D. Lee received the most likes, but Dark_Eagle_9343 also suggested many names, so thank you. P. Nice. Zack replied as he absorbed the remaining electricity. His body was once again surrounded by arcs of lightning, but they were much dimmer now. You've become weaker. Tetrax slowly jumped off his hoverboard. His helmet retracted, and his expression turned arrogant. I've become weaker, huh? Well, it's still enough to beat you. Zack gave a faint smile, raised his fists, and took a fighting stance. What an arrogant brat. Tetrax's mouth twitched slightly. He clenched his fists and aimed directly at Zack. As he threw a powerful punch, a mass of crystals burst forth, forming a giant crystalline fist that blasted toward Zack. Current, gather at my feet. Zack held his breath, quickly channeling the electricity down to his feet. Then, with a light stomp, boom. Zack's figure shot into the air as if propelled by jets, dodging Tetrax's attack and launching himself straight at him. Bang! Tetrax remained expressionless. He raised his fists, which transformed into a pair of diamond hammers. He swung the hammers at the incoming Zack. Sizzle. Zack responded with a straight punch. Electricity instantly surged around his fist as it shot forward. Rumble. The electrified heavy punch collided with the diamond hammers. Zack and Tetrax, one above, one below, clashed in midair, their figures locked in a stalemate. This kid, he can actually fight me to a draw. Tetrax looked up at Zack in disbelief, his expression full of astonishment. Zack really can handle this powerful alien, Ben muttered, taking a deep breath, once again feeling the gap between himself and Zack. Crack. A sharp sound rang out. Tetrax's diamond hammers began to crack slightly. His face twisted in surprise and confusion as his body started to retreat uncontrollably. Boom. With a loud blast, Tetrax was the first to be sent flying. Zack, however, landed gracefully on the ground. It wasn't a draw. Zack flexed his hand joints, his tail swaying slightly. It means I can beat you. How? How did he do that? Did Zack just absorb energy again? Gwen stared at the scene in disbelief, completely unable to make sense of what she was seeing. If I'm not mistaken, Grandpa Max said, gazing at the smoke dispersing in the air, just now, Zack used his tail to absorb the kinetic energy from the explosion. This alien can absorb almost all forms of energy. That was precisely the invincible trait of Backlash. In everything in the world, there is energy. And all of it could be used by Backlash. Bang! Tetrax crashed heavily to the ground, immediately slamming his hands down. Diamond crystals erupted, encasing his entire body. The next second, boom! Zack's foot, charged with current, split the crystal open like a battle axe. Tetrax took the chance to quickly leap out, landing a punch on Zack's chin. Kid, you're no match for me when it comes to combat skills. Bang! Is that so? Zack's tail, pulsing with electricity, slammed down on Tetrax's head like a heavy hammer. Tetrax's head buzzed as he was hammered into the ground once again. His skills aren't inferior to mine. Bang! 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 The two immediately engaged in close combat. Zack took a claw-like stance with both hands, electricity surging from his fingertips, leaving cracks across Tetrax's body. His combat technique, physical strength, and even the alien's natural advantages all subtly suppressed Tetrax. Moments later, Tetrax endured the pain, suddenly leapt up, and landed on his approaching hoverboard. Standing atop it, he raised his hands and aimed down at Zack. With long-range attacks, I'll definitely make you yield. His voice carried a trace of anger. Yes. Tetrax was a prideful person, and now he was furious. Bang! 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 Tetrax swung his arms repeatedly, launching a barrage of diamond crystals. Zack raised his hands as well, lightning arcing from his fingers. The electric arcs precisely intercepted all the incoming crystals. Zack was in no way inferior to Tetrax. In long-range combat, he's just as strong as me. Tetrax muttered in disbelief, and the hoverboard beneath his feet suddenly jolted violently. The next moment, the hoverboard spun out of control. As a result, Tetrax himself was thrown off and crashed heavily to the ground. What's going on? He was full of shock, landing hard beside Zack. Because I didn't just block your attacks, I also used my electric arcs to interfere with your hoverboard's systems, Zack said calmly, well, as calmly as a Carnitrix version of feedback can look as he spoke at Tetrax. His palm, carrying the last surge of current, hovered just above Tetrax's throat. Tetrax didn't dare to move. In long-range combat, I'm not as good as you either. This time, I've truly lost to you, this Earth kid, in every aspect. Tetrax gave a bitter smile, his tone tinged with embarrassment. This was awkward. He had planned to defeat Zack first, then give him a lecture. But now that he'd been defeated instead, how was he supposed to explain this? Ding. Host has consecutively destroyed 7 small robots, slain Krob, and defeated Tetrax, significantly altering the original plot progression. Progress +1. Template progress is now at 15/100ths. Critical node reached. Unlocking Carnitrix Watch Authority, killing intent. Zack no longer had the energy to worry about Tetrax. His expression grew tense as he quickly asked in his mind, System, tell me, what is killing intent? Ding. The so-called killing intent means the Carnitrix Watch's self-awareness has awakened. The system's gentle voice sent chills down his spine. Oh, fool. Zack's heart tightened, and he was about to inspect the Carnitrix more closely. Oh, what self-awareness? Don't tell me. Bang. Tetrax suddenly shoved Zack aside and quickly grabbed the hoverboard from the ground. He flung the hoverboard into the air and leapt onto it. You two, one has the power to protect himself, and the other can inspire endless self-reliance. I'm relieved. With that, he sped off on the hoverboard, fleeing the scene. Gwen crossed her arms, a small smile on her lips. Clearly, Zack was the one who scared you off. You don't need his approval, do you? Hey, Zack, he approved of me, didn't he? Ben chuckled, then looked at the troubled Zack. Oh, why the troubled look? Still stuck on the name thing. If you don't like Backlash, then I can think of something else like Freak Electric or something. Apparently, he thought Zack was still worried about the name he had suggested. Thanks, Ben, Backlash sounds cool, no need to think about it. After Zack thanked him and confirmed he was fine, he returned to the old, rust bucket with the others. The old vehicle continued across the desolate landscape, heading toward their next destination. Zack leaned on the lower bunk and softly said, System, open the personal panel. Personal panel. Host. Zack. Age. 11. Template. Carnitrix. Transformation duration. 20 minutes. Cooldown duration. 10 to 0 minutes. Killer mode unlocked. Killer consciousness unlocked. Progress. 15/100ths. Skills. Multilingualism. Proficiency in 5 major languages. Advanced driving. Expertise in operating vehicles across land, air, and sea. Close combat techniques. Training in hand-to-hand or close-quarters fighting. Precision firearms training. Instruction in the accurate and precise use of firearms. Items. None. Unlocked aliens. The original 10. Snare O, Mummy. Feedback to Backlash. Frankenstrike. Blitzwolfer. Gorebolt. Terror Eye. Wildvine. Ditto. Gluttony. Grave Glacier. Upgrade. New alien name pending. Physical condition. Adult level physical strength. Mental energy. Significantly above average for a human. Zack immediately sat up from a lying position, his face full of surprise. Huh. Why did the cooldown time change to 10 to 0 minutes? System, explain in detail. Ding. Simply put, the host can now forcibly transform during the cooldown period. Doing so will awaken the Carnitrix's killer consciousness, which, although temporary, will attempt to take control of the host. Now, Zack understood. In the original, the Carnitrix could transform without a cooldown precisely because of its killer consciousness. Now, the system had refined it, turning that ability into an active skill. This way, I can choose freely whether or not to unleash the Carnitrix, Zack said, clenching his fist slightly and taking a deep breath. I just wonder if I'll be able to resist the Carnitrix's control. He now possessed an extremely dangerous, but incredibly useful, trump card. Overall, the advantages outweighed the risks. Zack, I really envy you, having so many alien heroes. Meanwhile, I'm still stuck with just these 10, Ben said, his voice heavy with longing as the rust bucket rumbled toward the sunset. Ben looked at Zack's watch, then looked at his poor, busted one, which sometimes didn't even listen to him. Sigh, what a burden tilde. A new day. Sparksville town. Inside a theme park named Fantasia Amusement Park. It featured oversized exhibits like giant duct tape and giant globes, but not much else. The entire park, aside from Zack and his group, was nearly empty of visitors. Grandpa, Ben said, looking around in confusion, do you come to this park often? Ben, how did you know? Grandpa Max asked. Because if you weren't coming here to pay for tickets, this place probably would have shut down a long time ago. As Ben delivered his soul-piercing complaint, Zack and Gwen both smiled knowingly. This place really was unbelievably boring. Wait a second. Ben's eyes suddenly lit up, and the others stopped as well, curiosity piqued. At the entrance of a pitch-black building, various warning signs were plastered all over, each one screaming caution. Please do not come close to it. Please do not touch it inside. Please touch the ground with both hands to discharge static electricity before entering. Children under 10 are strictly prohibited from entering. What is this? A haunted house. Zack quirked an eyebrow with interest, lifted his foot, and was the first to step inside. Once inside, the main attraction was a massive ball of yarn on display, nothing else. Just this ball. Ben stared at the giant yarn ball, speechless, and reached out to touch it. Why can't I touch it? Ben, leave it alone. Zack reached out and pushed Ben's hand down, speaking sincerely, it's better not to touch random things. That bit of dissuasion made Ben give up the idea of messing around, ensuring a whole day of peace and safety. Maybe he even earned some template energy tilde. Just as everyone was about to leave, the door suddenly slammed shut. What's happening? Zack walked over to the door but couldn't push it open, it was sealed tight. Why can't we enter? Inside the dim house. The lights began to flicker wildly, and faint glows floated through the air like fireflies. Sparks of electricity started crackling around the yarn ball. Sometimes they leapt toward the group. Other times, they struck the door. Bang! Bang! From time to time, heavy knocking sounds echoed throughout the house. Is the world really acting up now? Zack looked shocked, raising the Carnitrix with a hint of unease. Zack, I think someone has been unlawfully kept inside. Gwen ran over in fright and clung to Zack's arm. Though they often teased each other, in moments like this, her childhood friend was still the most reliable. Don't worry. I'll break down the door. Grandpa Max stepped forward, raising his elbow and lining up for a strike. The door opened with a bang, and they found it. This is it. A giant ball of rubber bands. Gwen blurted out. And the sound seems to come from the inside, Max muttered. Ben, full of fearless energy, walked boldly toward the yarn ball. If I'm not mistaken, all this weirdness is because of this thing. Ben, wait. The board says not to touch it, it might be dangerous. We can hide today, but we can't hide forever. Let's face the fear head on. With the bold spirit of a true hot-blooded protagonist, Ben slammed his palm onto the yarn and gave it a hard pull. The yarn ball suddenly unraveled rapidly, and golden rays of light refracted from within. Wherever the light reached, figures began to take shape. ZZZT tilde. They were small aliens shaped like batteries. Each had 4 limbs, smiling faces, and their entire bodies crackled with fierce golden electricity. Oh my goodness, they're all aliens. Gwen gasped, clinging to Zack in shock. It's okay. Let me handle them. Zack took a deep breath, quickly rotated the Carnitrix screen, selected a familiar alien, and slammed his hand down. If he remembered correctly, these aliens were called Megafoot, right? As the blood-red light flashed, all the Megafoot were instantly drawn to it, flying toward the red glow with cheerful expressions. One of them even bumped into the busted watch on Ben's wrist. Ben instinctively protected his broken watch, only to find it flashing with bursts of light. As the red light slowly faded, Gwen, still staring at the flying Megafoot, clung tightly to the Zack next to her. Wait, that's not right. Zack had become smaller. And his body felt cold to the touch. Gwen slowly turned her head, almost on the verge of tears. Zack, don't transform so suddenly like that again. Oh, Gwen, am I that scary? Standing beside her was a skeleton-like figure, about the same size as the Megafoots. He looked at Gwen in confusion, and Gwen nearly collapsed from fright. The figure then turned to look at the megafoot. Ah! The megafoots all suddenly scattered, surging toward the main entrance and smashing it open as they fled. ZZZZT. Electric light radiated from Zack's body, forming his outer shell until he looked nearly identical to the other megafoots. He chased after them, puzzled. Am I really that scary? This alien should be called. Ben, though still shaken, took a deep breath and began his usual grand naming process. Ben's megawatt in the original series was called Nosedenian. I'm thinking of blood light for Zack's transformation. Overkilowatt. As the shout echoed, Zack rushed out toward the amusement park, silently locking in the name. IMG Overkilowatt wins. At that moment, inside the park, each of the megafoots acted like mischievous pranksters, wildly destroying nearby decorations. Some tourists had even become their playthings. The owner of Fantasia Amusement Park lay on the ground, completely resigned to his fate, letting the megafoots trample over him. Kiss Blizz freedom. Finally. Ha ha ha. Don't underestimate them, even though they were small. Bullying ordinary people was an easy task. You lil guys are now just asking for a beating. Zack growled lowly. The electricity around his body flared slightly, and in the next instant, he shot out like a meteor. Bang, bang, bang. His body slammed into the megafoots one by one, knocking them to the ground. And as the megafoots groaned and writhed on the floor in pain, roar. 4 arms, transformed by Ben, charged in and decisively grabbed the megafoots, tossing them back into the giant yarn ball one after another. Kiz fool it. You seem to be like us. Blissed but a little different. ZZZT this traitor's asking for a beating. Kiz let's take him down together. The remaining megafoots were furious at the sight. They glared at Zack, electric light sparking wildly around them. Come on, then. He tilde. Zack bared a wicked grin and growled. Blist blist blist. Bang, bang, bang. The megafoots charged at high speed, crashing into Zack one after another. Zack was strong enough to knock each one away with brute force. But as the battle of attrition dragged on, the electricity surging around his body gradually began to dim. Kahahez, once you run out of juice, it's our turn to strike back. ZZZT yeah, kid, who told you to betray your own kind? Blizzed when we catch you, we're gonna beat you down good. The megafoots wore sinister smiles as they coordinated their attacks, taking turns to wear Zack down. Whoever was knocked away would be instantly replaced by another, giving Zack no chance to counterattack at all. Ben watched anxiously, reaching out to grab the megafoots. Although he managed to catch a few, it clearly wasn't enough to change the fact that Zack was being swarmed. After several rounds of sustained attacks. This is bad. The electric light around Zack's body suddenly vanished. He awkwardly reached for the Carnitrix dial and muttered, time to let Mad Lizard handle the brats, you pushed me too far. Flood the traitor. Attack. ZZZZT. Countless megafoots flashed sinister grins and charged at Zack all at once. Click. As Zack slightly rotated the Carnitrix dial on his body. All the megafoots suddenly froze in place around him. Their expressions went stiff, limbs locked, bodies seemingly suspended in midair. Zack slowly looked up, staring at the paralyzed megafoots around him in surprise. You're scared, or are you all speechless by the handsomeness of Carnitrix variant? Feedback. His terrifying face stared directly at the megafoots. Ost. He just grew. He's become an evolved ghost megafoot. Helpized. In an instant, all the megafoots scattered in a panic, some even dove into Ben's forearms arms, hiding in his shirt. Oh. Are you considering Backlash as your big brother? It was like a group of kids bullying another kid, only for that kid to suddenly turn into a terrifying adult in the middle of the fight. They were scared stiff. At that point, who would even dare to keep fighting? This is the second time I've won a fight just based on appearance. Zack's mouth twitched slightly. The last time, he'd scared Ben. Now, it was Zack unilaterally tormenting the megafoots. Every single megafoot obediently let itself be caught and returned to the yarn ball. And just like that, the megafoot incident was completely resolved. What the fool, I didn't even get any template progress. The megafoots are too weak. Zack was speechless when he noticed the system in his mind remained silent. Just then, the amusement park owner walked over and said sincerely, "Mr. Megafoot Dad, thank you for helping me. The fool's wrong with you, dude." Zack frowned slightly and replied in exasperation, "EHM. You can call me Backlash. Also, what's the deal with these little aliens? They've been in the amusement park for a long time, locked up," the park owner explained helplessly. "But they always find a way to escape." "I see." Zack glanced at the yarn ball and fell into thought. "I can understand them wanting to come out, but once they're loose, they really can hurt people." Suddenly, he thought of a win-win solution. A plan that could keep the Megafuts in check and earn him some template progress. Half an hour later, the park owner, Grandpa Max, and the others stood in the nearly empty amusement park, staring wide-eyed at the sky. Up above, Backlash's elegant figure soared through the air, leading the Megafuts one by one as they flew high into the sky. All the Megafuts obediently followed behind Zack, not daring to defy their terrifying-looking big brother in the slightest. They flew out of the city, over desolate terrain, and finally landed in an abandoned garbage dump. Zack opened a dumpster at the edge of the dump and, along with the Megafuts, entered Sludge Puppy's underground base. The massive underground space immediately became the Megafuts' new home. They wept with gratitude, snot and tears streaming down their faces. "ZZZZT, thank you, scary big brother. Blizzed, big brother, you should live here too. Okay, listen kiddos. Remember this." Zack's expression turned serious as he pointed toward the entrance. "I'm going to seal off the entrance to this underground base. It's to keep humans from finding this place and disturbing you, and also to protect the town's residents." "No problem." The Megafuts nodded rapidly, agreeing without hesitation. After they scurried off, Zack, still in Backlash form, personally sealed the entire underground entrance. And with that, everything was finally settled. "I'm seriously exhausted." Zack leaned against the side of the dumpster, watching the sunset. Ding! The host defeated the Megafuts, changed their fate through his own power, and helped them relocate to a new home. Progress +1. Template progress is now 16/100ths. The Limax Sludge Puppy unlocked. Sludge Puppy. Zack raised an eyebrow slightly. "Looks like I'll be collecting villain DNA too." A faint smile appeared on his lips. And in his heart, it wasn't just the joy of gaining progress. It was also a rare sense of pride. He had genuinely done something heroic for once. 10 minutes passed in a flash, and Zack, still in his form as the Star of Terror, quietly left the town. When he arrived back at Fantasia Amusement Park, the park owner was in the middle of negotiating compensation with the insurance company. It turned out he had long ago purchased comprehensive insurance for the park, so if the facilities were damaged accidentally, he could receive a hefty payout. Clearly, the Megafuts had done him quite the favor. That evening, the park owner even treated Grandpa Max's family to a meal, and personally saw them off in their car the next morning. In the rust bucket, Grandpa Max, hands on the steering wheel, suddenly said, "The anomaly we encountered at the warehouse back then wasn't caused by aliens, it was caused by human greed." "Grandpa, are you saying the owner committed insurance fraud?" Zack was stunned, then quickly understood what Grandpa Max meant. There was no such thing as some mysterious worldwall, it was just plain, simple insurance fraud. No wonder the Megafuts were always able to escape so easily. No wonder the amusement park, despite operating at a loss, had stayed open. They were getting massive payouts every time the Megafuts broke something. Grandpa Max nodded with a smile. "You found a new home for the Megafuts. You really did save that group of aliens who had been kept in the dark." "It was just a convenient solution," Zack replied with a smile, slowly leaning back in the lounge chair. Doing a good deed and gaining gratitude didn't feel so bad. It was noon. The rust bucket rolled into bustling New York and parked in front of a 4-star hotel. Grandpa Max, Zack, and the group entered the hotel and received the key card for the presidential suite. Meanwhile, Ben was drawn to a Riot Sumo trial event taking place inside the hotel. He wanted to join in but was stopped at the entrance for not having an invitation. "Just because they won't let me in, does that mean I can't get in?" Ben raised his Omnitrix watch and gritted his teeth. "Ben, if you keep messing around with that watch every day, when are you ever going to surpass me?" Zack gave him a casual glance and spoke nonchalantly. "Huh. Ben froze for a second, then his competitive spirit kicked in. Zach, I'm not seriously planning to use the busted watch like that. What I said earlier was just out of frustration. Zach, just wait until I surpass you. Then I'll play with this watch every single day. And so, thanks to Zach's planning, everyone made it to the suite smoothly and began enjoying themselves. However, because there was an arcade directly across from the suite, it looked incredibly tempting. Ben couldn't sit still and dragged Zach and the ever-reading Gween out of the hotel. The three of them crossed the street and arrived at the entrance of the arcade. Ben looked up at the Grand Arcade building. Cool. Arcades in New York are way better than the ones back in the countryside where we live. When did Bellwood become the countryside? Gwen pouted, clearly unimpressed. As the three entered the arcade, a mix of crashing sounds and angry shouting echoed from inside. A group of punks with mohawk haircuts and leather jackets were there. They were shoving and beating up a boy. The black-haired boy was cornered against the wall. His face was bruised and swollen, but his eyes were still filled with defiance. Kevin, you're not getting away this time. Don't let him near the arcade machine. Hey, beat him up. One by one, the punks closed in on Kevin, grinning menacingly as they surrounded him. The people around watched the scene unfold. They glanced at the beaten-up Kevin, then at the intimidating group of punks. And not a single person stepped forward or even bothered to call the police. What a coincidence. Zach narrowed his eyes as he observed the situation from the corner. We actually ran into Kevin here. In the original story, it was this same arcade, and it was this same Kevin, surrounded by punks. The only difference was that this time, they had arrived a bit late. Kevin was already taking a beating. If no one else is going to do anything, I will. Ben clenched his fist tightly, unable to stand by any longer, and turned to head toward a secluded area. Wait, Ben. Zach suddenly reached out and stopped him. Zach, it's not like us to just stand around and watch someone get hurt, Ben said, confused by Zach's reaction. What I mean is, let me handle it. Zach took a deep breath and walked toward a more isolated corner. Ben and Gwen instinctively moved to block the cameras. Immediately after, Zach twisted the Carnitrix dial, his expression firm. Ben, if you help Kevin, something bad might happen, let me step in and handle it. He knew Kevin too well, and he knew Kevin could absorb alien DNA. That's why it was better for him to intervene. Bang! As Zach slammed down on the Carnitrix, a flash of light erupted. Ben glanced back, and immediately covered his mouth. Blood, so much blood. What he saw was a tall alien made entirely of blood, staring straight at him. Ben suppressed his fear and didn't dare look again. Gwen turned her head slightly, curious, but quickly looked away before she could catch a clear glimpse of Zach's transformation. She wanted to look, but didn't have the nerve. Ben, this is the sludge puppy we ran into before, Zach said as he stared at his blood-soaked hands, revealing a fierce grin. But in my hands, it's become a blood monster. Zach, you're really terrible at naming things. Ben muttered. In my opinion, why not call it Blood Demon? The moment he finished speaking, Zach strode forward, step by step, toward the punks. Kekiki tilde then we'll call it Blood Demon, he said with a slight smile, revealing 2 rows of sharp fangs on his grotesque face. Unbelievable, even the corrupted sludge puppy has teeth. In truth, the teeth were part of the Carnitrix's design. Ah, what the fool is that? So terrifying. Mom. God. Someone save me. Don't look at me, please don't kill me. I haven't even lost my virginity yet. At that moment, screams filled the arcade. Everyone was using sheer volume to express the raw fear surging in their hearts. Their screams were as loud as fans spotting their favorite celebrity, only this time, it was out of absolute terror. Ha ha ha, these people are so timid, they're terrified of us. Hee hee, maybe we're just too heroic. Kevin, don't wet your pants in fear. The punks all wore proud, arrogant grins, looking down at Kevin with smug expressions. Hey, aren't you guys exaggerating a little too much? Kevin gritted his teeth through the pain and opened his eyes, glancing past the group of punks. In that instant, his eyes froze, his lips trembled, and his legs gave out as he uncontrollably dropped to his knees. Kneeling, the punk leader grinned viciously. Don't you think it's a little late to be begging? He reached out and placed a hand on Kevin's shoulder. He must have thought he had some kind of conqueror's hockey or something. After all, he'd just made the unruly Kevin kneel. Bang! Another wet hand landed on the punk leader's shoulder. Who's nasty? Wet hand is touching me. Did you pee on yourself or something? The punk leader cursed and turned his head to look. Only to see a terrifying, blood-formed face staring back at him. A suffocating, despair-inducing stench of blood emanated from the figure. That blood-soaked hand remained firmly on the punk leader's shoulder. As for the other punks, they had all collapsed to the ground, as if they'd truly been hit by conqueror's hockey. The rest of the people in the arcade were now hiding under the machines, terrified of being noticed by Zack. Hey there. Let go of this boy. Zack spoke slowly and clearly to the punk leader, enunciating every word. The punk leader froze. Then, without thinking, his eyes unfocused, he instinctively threw a punch at Zack's body. Bang! Zack didn't dodge at all, allowing the punch to land directly on his body. The punk leader's hand sank into Zack's form as if it were a pool of sludge, completely swallowed by the blood-like mass. With a heavy flick of his arm, Zack sent the punk leader flying, his body crashing to the ground 10 meters away. You had the nerve to punch me after seeing me. You've got guts. Zack calmly rubbed his hands together and walked over to where the punk leader had fallen. His expression shifted slightly. The punk's eyes had rolled back, and foam bubbled at the corners of his mouth, completely unconscious. Most likely, he'd thrown that punch out of pure reflex, and after that, his brain simply shut down. At this point, Zack had taken care of the entire group of low-level punks without even breaking a sweat. Now, time to deal with Kevin. Zack's expression grew complicated as he slowly turned to face Kevin. Only to see Kevin rushing straight toward him, his steps quick and determined. Is he trying to ambush me? Zack's heart skipped a beat, and he shifted into a defensive stance. In the next instant, Kevin suddenly stopped short, then bolted straight toward the open side window. He leapt out in one motion and sprinted away like he was running a 100-meter dash. As he ran, he couldn't help but shout, "Monster! Monster!" Yeah, right. He was just terrified and used the chance to escape. Zack stood in silence for a moment, the corner of his mouth twitching. I think I might have overestimated Kevin's courage. Kevin could push Ben around because Ben was easy to talk to. But the moment he came face to face with Zack, he crumbled instantly. It's over, Kevin's gone. We finally had a chance to deal with him. That kid's definitely going to come after us now. The gang members all went pale, clenching their fists in frustration and anger. Hey, you gang members go around bullying people, and you still have the nerve to say that. Ben waved his hands, looking confused. You don't understand how terrifying Kevin is. Maybe all the gangs on 5th Street are doomed. The gang members spoke in frightened tones. Zack frowned in thought. Is Kevin really that strong? He only remembered that Kevin had the ability to absorb alien DNA. He also recalled that, for some reason, the grown-up Kevin turned good, and even took Gwen away. Other details, he couldn't remember in detail. Woo woo woo. As sirens sounded in the distance, Zack and the others quickly slipped out through the back door of the arcade. Let's go check out some other arcades. Ben clearly didn't take the Kevin matter seriously, figuring the gang members were just talking nonsense. Zack also nodded. Hopefully, Kevin's storyline would end here. After a while, Zack returned to his original form. The three searched around, but all the nearby arcades had closed in fear. With no other options, they headed back to the hotel. I didn't even get to play any games, so annoying. Ben looked frustrated, then glanced at the trial event inside the hotel and the fierce-looking bodyguard. Big bro bodyguard, why won't you let us into play? Please. His tone even carried a hint of pleading. The bodyguard was taken aback for a moment, then his tone softened slightly. Normally, you could go in and play without an invitation. But right now, it's strict because someone stole a batch of new cartridges from the trial event and tried to resell them. Is that for real? Ben's eyes widened. That person was also a kid your age. The bodyguard said helplessly. So I hope you can understand why I'm being so strict. A kid our age. Zack's expression grew more serious, his brows furrowing. Someone their age with the skill to steal cartridges and resell them. Only Kevin. And what would he do if he got money? Perhaps he would retaliate against those gang members and become New York's #1 criminal. Gwen, let's go back to the suite first. Zack took a deep breath and quickly said, I think we just let a super criminal escape. What? Super criminal. Cool. Gwen's expression tensed, while Ben looked inexplicably excited. As the three hurried back to the suite, Zack explained his suspicions in detail, though the others naturally found it hard to believe. They didn't know Kevin had superpowers, so they simply couldn't accept the idea that he could pull something like this off. Zack didn't push the explanation further. Instead, he said calmly, Gwen, check the exact location of 5th Street on the computer. Okay. Gwen also became serious. She pulled her laptop from her bag, plugged it in, and turned it on. As she typed on the keyboard, she spoke with focus. The exact location of 5th Street is a slum area. It's very chaotic, and there are even news reports about constant gang clashes there. Good. Zack nodded firmly, looking directly at Grandpa Max. Grandpa, are we going? Zack, your reasoning is just a hypothesis. There's no concrete evidence, Grandpa Max replied cautiously. Grandpa, Zack said, playing the moral card, a decisive blow to Grandpa Max. With great power comes great responsibility. We have to eliminate the risks. You're right. Grandpa Max, surprisingly, was persuaded and said thoughtfully, even if we're just going to stop gang fights, it's still a heroic act. Let's go. Unbelievably, Grandpa Max had been convinced by Zack just like that. Thumbs up to Uncle Ben. The three immediately set out, leaving the hotel and climbing into the old beat-up rust bucket. The rust bucket headed toward the so-called 5th Street, but the traffic was heavy, typical for a big city. 5th Street. As New York's most notorious crime district, it was overflowing with gangs and brimming with violent conflict. Bang! A gang boss was furiously berating his subordinates. You actually let Kevin get away. If he escapes, he can use that money to buy weapons and come after us. You idiots. We almost succeeded. It was a super fierce monster that stopped us, one gang member stammered. As they explained, they kept nervously glancing around. In their eyes, Zack's existence was like that of the god of death, they barely even dared to mention him. They feared Zack might suddenly appear out of nowhere. Now, follow me home, get your weapons, and prepare to fight Kevin. The gang boss barked furiously. They moved quickly, heading back. But when the gang members arrived at their doorstep, they froze, their faces trembling. Hey Tilda. Kevin was leaning casually against the ruins, firearm strapped to his back, his hands slowly lifting. Crackling. Thick streams of electricity, like torrents of water, erupted from his hands. Kevin, I've long stopped caring about this home. Go ahead, smash it some more, the gang boss said with a forced smile. I'm tired of smashing your home, it's your turn. Kevin bared his chest, releasing a surge of high-voltage electricity. The current struck the gang members, leaving them convulsing, until their bodies were charred. Hee hee. Kevin lowered his hands and started walking toward a car parked by the roadside. The car's trunk was packed with various charging devices, enough to recharge Kevin several times over. As he absorbed the energy, Kevin said coldly, I'm going to wipe out the biggest gang, take all their money, and disappear. Whoosh tilde. By the time the rust bucket arrived at 5th Street, gang members were lying in pools of blood, one after another. Buildings were engulfed in flames. In short, a bloody storm had swept through the area. Ding. Without Ben's restraint, the escaped Kevin sold stolen goods, armed himself, retaliated against all gangs, became New York's most feared criminal, greatly altered the plot, and gained progress +1. Template progress. 17/100ths. A lake monster unlocked, name pending. Zack listened to the voice in his head as he stepped out of the vehicle. He looked at the scene before him with a serious expression. The plot he had changed, he now had to set right with his own hands. 5th Street, the only villa residential area. All the gangsters here lay in pools of blood, barely clinging to life. Kevin sat on the lawn, several boxes of money stacked in front of him. Awesome. You guys are loaded, there's millions here in clean cash. Kevin. The gang boss looked up and pleaded, leave some money. You can't take it all. I've got a car, and I can drive, Kevin said proudly. I'll gladly be taking this money. With that, he slowly removed the silenced rifle from his back and aimed it at the gang boss. Click. The moment Kevin's finger pulled the trigger, whoosh. A blinding light suddenly flashed from behind. Who? Kevin instinctively turned around, only to see a surge of red light pouring in from the main entrance. Waves of heat slammed into him, and Kevin frowned slightly as sweat poured down his face. It was only 35 degrees today, right? Why was it so hot? As the red light faded, flames suddenly erupted. Standing there was an alien with fiery red skin, covered in flame-like patterns. His head burned fiercely, like a roaring inferno. His face was shaped like a demonic mask, his eyes pitch black, and his mouth full of fangs. A single, blazing eye, now that was a man's romance. IMG. What kind of monster is this now? Kevin shivered in fear and immediately pulled the trigger. Bang! 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 As the rifle spat bullets, they flew toward Zack, but melted instantly upon contact with his superheated body. Raising his hand, Zack conjured a massive, terrifying ball of fire. Why you can play with fire, but I can generate electricity. Kevin tossed aside the rifle, and a surge of powerful current erupted from his hand. Bang! As the electricity collided with the flames, the fire completely overpowered the current and blasted straight toward Kevin's body. Ugh! Kevin was sent flying in a sorry state, tumbling into the distance. Zack hooked his finger, and the flame actually followed Kevin's trajectory, chasing him out into the street. Boom! With a loud crash, Kevin hit the ground, thick smoke rising from his body. The battle ended almost instantly. Zack had crushed Kevin with absolute combat power. He stepped forward, slowly making his way to the street, heading toward the smoking figure. Zaw! Fireman! Ben's voice sounded, his steps firm. Let me deal with him, okay? Ben, you wanted to help him earlier out of good intentions. You don't need to blame yourself. Zack paused for a moment, suppressing his anger as he tried to comfort Ben. Please, let me feel better. Ben took a deep breath and said. He can generate electricity, so use a long-range alien to deal with him, Zack advised, then nodded and decisively gave up the battlefield. As long as Ben used a long-range alien to keep Kevin from absorbing his DNA, he had a good chance of winning. What's more, Zack was still there to control the situation if needed. Don't worry, I already have the perfect choice. Ben raised his hand and slammed it down on the raised Omnitrix dial. As the light flared, a burst of electricity shot out from the transformation. The figure of Megafoot hovered proudly in the air, staring intently at the source of the thick smoke. I'll use Megafoot to teach this guy a lesson. You fooling assholes, don't think you can stop me from getting my money. A roar echoed out. Kevin limped from the thick smoke, a huge surge of electricity condensing in his hands as he locked onto Ben in the sky. First, I'll take care of you, the newcomer. Boom. He swung his arm hard, and a terrifying wave of high-voltage current blasted toward Ben. Ben also raised his hand, sending a surge of electricity forward. The two currents collided, but Ben's was stronger, slowly forcing its way toward Kevin. Just then, hey Tilda. Kevin suddenly lowered his hands, letting the current hit his own body. He convulsed from the shock, but used his trembling hands to greedily absorb the energy. Bahaha. I can absorb energy, URG. I'll gladly accept yours. This is too ruthless, isn't it? Seeing Kevin's self-destructive tactic, Ben's eyes widened in astonishment. His body transformed into a beam of light again, directly attaching itself to Kevin. Your body is also made of energy. Wait, what's happening to me? Kevin's excitement vanished as he screamed, and a dazzling light exploded outward. Ben was thrown back, landing beside Zack. Annoying, I messed up. Ben, this isn't your fault this time. And, Zack slowly clenched his fist, his face serious. I'm here. He had helped Ben unlock Megafoot, but it had ended up causing trouble for him. But he would step in to turn the situation around. Now, I'm also a monster, one that's not losing to you. ZZZT. Kevin slowly walked out of the light, his voice eerily similar to Megafoot's. His physique remained the same as before, but his skin had turned black, and his eyes had turned golden, just like an adult version of Megafoot. Zack said nothing, only raising his hand again and aiming at Kevin. Boom. Zack and Kevin simultaneously unleashed flames and electricity. The two elements collided, and once again, the flames mercilessly overpowered the electricity, slamming into Kevin's body. Kevin was blasted backward, disbelief etched across his face. Dizzed. Again, another instant defeat. Back in the yard, I didn't want to use my full strength. I was afraid I'd kill everyone there. Zack slowly clenched his fist, flames roaring around him, making him look like a flame demon god. Now, he could go all out. Bang, bang, bang. Zack's fist swung relentlessly, each punch bursting into a ball of fire that pounded Kevin in the sky. Kevin was battered again and again, completely unable to fight back. Let alone counterattack. Even staying airborne was a luxury. The most unbelievable part was when Kevin was about to be blasted out of 5th Street, far beyond Zack's position, Zack could still hurl fiery punches with pinpoint accuracy, hitting him from a great distance. His aim was practically at eagle-eye level. Kevin's expression twisted with frustration as he roared, I should have found a chance to absorb this guy's DNA. They were both aliens, but this guy's strength was ridiculous. Good heavens. Ben stared wide-eyed at the scene. Zack, when will I ever be able to surpass you? That day seemed a long way off. Work harder. Zack let out a low cry, flames erupting from the soles of his feet as he flew after the fleeing Kevin like Iron Man. He fought while flying, continuing until his physical strength was nearly spent. Kevin, on the other hand, was brutally beaten the entire time, almost reverting to human form before crashing heavily to the ground. Done. Zack slowly landed, keeping a cautious eye on Kevin. Next. Time, I will definitely absorb your DNA. Kevin spoke with difficulty, squeezing out the last of his strength as his body transformed into a stream of electricity. Zack immediately raised his hand, aiming at Kevin's form again, only to lower it. Because the current Kevin had transformed rushed into a burning house. His screams echoed as he fled through the sea of fire. When it came to ruthlessness, Zack was far inferior to Kevin. Zack coldly lowered his hand, a strange expression on his face. If you're lucky enough to survive, and even absorb my DNA, you'll become weaker. The Carnitrix aliens were generally weaker, their exceptional performance came entirely from his terrifying main body. Ding! The host defeated the electricity-filled Kevin, defeated the feedback limited edition Kevin, progress +1. Template progress is 18/100ths, greatly enhanced physical functions unlocked. Zack's mouth formed an O shape. System. You counted Kevin's different forms as multiple rewards. No, is Kevin really that valuable? For a moment, Zack even faintly looked forward to Kevin's next visit, he would definitely squeeze Kevin hard. Squeeze 10 progress points out of him. Zack. Ben flew to Zack's side, gritting his teeth. Let's save people first, many are injured. Okay. Let's go. Zack looked at the disaster around him, his expression turning solemn. He quickly switched to way big, rescuing people and scaring others along the way. Ben, on the other hand, relied on his own abilities to save innocent people one by one. Even Grandpa Max and Gwen rushed into the fire to save people. A moment later, everyone was safe, and almost all the gangsters heavily beaten by Kevin were dead. Kevin, however, had removed 3 pests from the slum. In a certain alley, a crimson light flashed past. I have muscle definition now. Zack slowly lowered his head, looking at the clear muscle lines on his body that stretched his loose t-shirt. The strength within him was constantly surging. To use a classic phrase, it felt like he could punch a cow to death. System. Open personal panel. Personal panel. Host. Zack. Age. 11. Template. Carnitrix. Transformation duration. 20 minutes. Cooldown duration. 10 to 0 minutes. Killer mode unlocked. Killer consciousness unlocked. Progress. 18/100ths. Skills. Multilingualism. Proficiency in 5 major languages. Advanced driving. Expertise in operating vehicles across land, air, and sea. Close combat techniques. Training in hand-to-hand or close-quarters fighting. Precision firearms training. Instruction in the accurate and precise use of firearms. Items. None. Unlocked aliens. The original 10. Snare O, Mummy. Feedback to Backlash. Frankenstrike. Blitzwolfer. Gorebolt. Terror Eye. Wildvine. Ditto. Gluttony. Grave Glacier. Upgrade. Megafoot to overkilowatt. Way big. Ripjaws. Physical condition. Entry-level plumber strength. Mental energy. Significantly above average for a human. Zack looked at the last column and asked in confusion, entry-level plumber. What's the difference between this and my previous, strong adult? Ding, the host's previous physique was compared to ordinary people, now it's at a level where you can be a plumber. That's so powerful. Zack clenched his fist, silently anticipating the result of his next transformation. His aliens were going to get stronger collectively. After adapting to his body, Zack left the alley and joined everyone in the old rust bucket. Ben was in low spirits, head bowed. If I hadn't been careless, that guy wouldn't have escaped. Grandpa Max comforted Ben, patting him on the shoulder. Ben, reality won't always be smooth sailing. But I'll do better next time, Grandpa. Zack, just you wait. Ben said firmly. Ah, this. Zack looked at Ben, feeling somewhat relieved. Although reality was crueler than the anime, Ben had matured more because of it. Was this a good thing, or a bad thing? Thanks for watching.